The scent of grilled suya hung in the air, clashing with the diesel fumes that clung to the humid Lagos night. Amara Ikenna stood beneath the flickering light of a rusted street lamp in Yaba, her makeup melting, her heels worn at the edges. She looked nothing like the woman she was about to become, but she already knew how to wear the mask. Born the last of 5 girls in a cramped one-room apartment behind Tejuosho Market, Amara learned early that beauty was currency, and hers was gold. Her mother had once said, "In this life, survival is for those who understand leverage." For years, Amara watched her mother age fast, bent over trays of groundnut and sachet water, only to die with debts and a broken back. At 19, Amara made her first trade. Not out of desperation, but calculation. The man was Depo Omoli, 44, a mid-level government contractor with a wedding ring he never removed. He saw her selling Ankara scarves beside a BRT terminal. She saw the car first, then the eyes. He made her an offer with his glance before he ever spoke. The first night was awkward. She faked moans. He offered her an iPhone 11 and N300,000. She accepted it with a smile. That night, she cried in a cheap hotel room, but not from shame. From power. By 21, she was no longer small girl, big god. She was a name whispered in Ikoyi nightclubs. The girl with eyes that held secrets. She no longer took offers, she made them. And behind her allure was a mind that read men like ledgers. But Lagos has no saints. Only players. By the time Amara turned 22, she was no longer just moving through Lagos, she was shaping it. She had moved into a serviced apartment in Lekki Phase 1, funded by a real estate mogul who never touched her without first checking his blood pressure medication. Her closet had grown fat with designer dresses, red-bottom heels, and luxury bags that still had tags. But beneath the Gucci sunglasses and calculated smiles was a woman who never let herself forget why she started. She wasn't chasing love. She was chasing control. It was at a private fundraiser in Banana Island that her real transformation began. The event was for the re-election campaign of Senator Yusuf Gwandu, a northern power broker with a legacy of clean hands and dirty money. The crowd was tight: oil executives, retired generals, politicians, foreign investors, and 2 of Nigeria's wealthiest pastors. Amara was there not as a guest, but as an investment. Her current patron, Chief Sani Adebayo, had whispered earlier, "Tonight, you're going to meet the man who will change your life, if you let him." That man was Sir Ifeanyi Nwoke, the CEO of Nesco Holdings, a company that officially dealt in mining but unofficially was one of the largest money laundering fronts in West Africa. He was tall, bald, with the kind of belly that said he hadn't worried about consequences in decades. He looked at Amara like a man considering which art piece to bid for. "She's not just beautiful," Chief Adebayo said, patting her back like he owned her. "She's smart. You know she used to study economics at Unilag?" Amara smiled, eyes sparkling. "Still does. I study people's economies now." Sir Ifeanyi laughed. "Sharp tongue. I like that." And just like that, the real game began. That night, she left with him, not because she wanted to, but because she needed to. Sir Ifeanyi didn't give gifts, he gave access. And access was priceless. Within weeks, she was introduced to bank managers who didn't ask questions, to customs officers who waved her through, and to a fixer in Dubai who opened shell companies in her name. Sir Ifeanyi had built an empire on shadows, and now, Amara had a seat at the table. But it came with rules. Never ask about the source. Never get caught. Never grow a conscience. She abided by them all, until she met Chinedu. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. He drove a bolt-rattling Uber and had a second-hand MBA. But he looked at her like she was human. Not a prize. Not a transaction. Mark. It confused her. Then it frightened her. He offered her peace, but peace was not profitable. So she pushed him away, harder than necessary. She told him, "I was never yours to fix." Then she wept for the first time in months. Meanwhile, Sir Ifeanyi had bigger plans. He was laundering campaign funds for 3 major presidential candidates. Amara became his trusted courier, smuggling encrypted drives and documents across borders in her diamond-studded clutch. No customs agent dared search her. She was untouchable, or so she thought. But the problem with living in glass palaces is that someone always throws the first stone. One morning her name appeared, subtly, on a confidential memo leaked from EFCC. Female associate suspected of facilitating N2.4 billion cross-border transactions linked to illegal asset movements. Monitoring advised. The walls had begun to shift. The walls of her Lekki apartment had never felt this tight. Amara stared at the printed memo for the 10th time, her initials circled in red ink. The document had been slipped under her door, no name, no sender, just a warning. She checked the CCTV. It had been wiped. Only professionals could do that. Someone wanted her to know, you're being watched. Her phone buzzed. A known number. The house you built is on fire. Be ready to run. She didn't flinch. Fear for her was no longer panic. It was planning. She threw her passport, flash drives, and 2 encrypted phones into her Hermes bag. The diamonds stayed behind. They were traceable. Sir Ifani was unreachable. She tried all 5 of his numbers. Nothing. His office in Ikoyi was closed for fumigation. The man who had pulled her out of poverty had disappeared into thin air. And suddenly she realized she was a liability now. A week later, her bank accounts were frozen. Not just hers, also her mother's posthumous pension, which she had quietly inflated through a senator's aid. Even the boutique she'd registered in her cousin's name was sealed. In 72 hours, her entire empire vanished. She wasn't falling, she was being erased. Amara ran. First to Abuja, then to Accra. In Ghana, she stayed in a modest Airbnb and used burner phones to reach her contacts. Few responded. One banker friend texted her. They're hunting you. They want a fall girl before elections. Ifani is in Qatar. He sold you out. Her stomach dropped. Not because she was surprised, but because a part of her still hoped he'd protect her. But there was one move left. Amara had always kept a copy of the black files. Not for insurance, for revenge. Hidden on a flash drive wrapped in a sanitary pad, buried at the bottom of her backup duffel bag, were detailed logs, offshore accounts, shipment schedules, real estate scams, and names. Names of judges, bishops, generals, sos. All tied to Ifani's empire. She had never meant to use it. Until now. She contacted Chinedu. Not as a lover, but as a last resort. They met at a cheap eatery in OSU, Accra. He looked tired, he'd heard everything. Yet when he saw her, his face didn't harden. He just asked, "Do you want to run, or do you want to fight?" Amara placed the flash drive between them. "I want to bring them down." He nodded. "I know someone. A journalist." Exult. She used to work with Tari Irik, the one who leaked the Aso Rock files 2 years ago. Amara's breath caught. She's still alive? Yes. And waiting. 2 weeks later, a story broke. The Velvet Web, inside the hidden network controlling Nigeria's political finances. A joint investigation by Africa Watch and Le Monde. Amara's name wasn't in the piece, but her fingerprints were all over it. Within 48 hours, Sir Ifani's assets in 3 countries were seized. 2 sitting senators were forced to resign. And 1 presidential candidate pulled out, citing health concerns. But victories don't come free. 3 nights after the article dropped, a gunman tried to enter Amara's hideout. He didn't succeed, but she knew the message. This wasn't over. She dyed her hair, burned her Sims, vanished again. Now, Amara lives without a name. In Madrid. Sometimes Lisbon. Always near the shadows. She still carries the last copy of the files on a ring around her neck, not as a threat, but as a reminder. She once sold her body to buy the world. Now she holds its secrets in her fist. Return of the Nameless Queen. 10 years later, Lagos, Nigeria. The city had changed. The Lekki-Ape Expressway was now a sleek corridor lined with electric trams. BRT buses moved like clockwork. Billboards screamed in digital color. But beneath the tech gloss, the same hunger pulsed through the streets. New players, old games. A black SUV with diplomatic plates pulled into the underground parking lot of the Eco-Atlantic Business Hub. The woman who stepped out was dressed in ivory linen, a silk scarf draped low to hide her jawline. She moved like wealth, but not the noisy Nigerian kind. This was the quiet kind, the type that didn't speak, didn't beg, didn't explain. Her passport said Amina Sari, citizen of Senegal. But the woman walking into that elevator was Amara. Just older, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. She entered a private suite on the 39th floor. A man stood by the window, bald, well-dressed, hands behind his back. Turned. Didn't think I'd ever see you again, said Surafani, older now, with a limp in his left leg and more guards than friends. Amara smiled faintly. You said the same thing before Qatar. He chuckled. Still holding grudges? No, she said. I'm cashing receipts. She slid a brown envelope across the glass table. Inside, photos, financial statements, voice transcripts, proof of the new laundering network he had built through crypto exchanges and educational NGOs. Same empire. Different mask. He didn't flinch. So what do you want? Money. She shook her head. Not this time. I want a name, the man funding the offshore militias in Sokoto. You give me that and I leave. If not. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. He hesitated for 10 seconds. Then nodded. And just like that, the queen took another piece off the board. That night, Amara walked barefoot across the cold marble floor of her Ikoyi suite. She poured herself a glass of Zobo wine. She didn't toast. She didn't smile. She looked out at the city she once bled for. And whispered, I gave you my body. You took my soul. But I came back, for my name. Final note. There's a rumor whispered in high places, of a woman known only as Velvet, who knows where the bones are buried. She doesn't run anymore. Now they run from her. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for newly created content.